Here they are, one strike away, one out away. 3-2. Here it is!
On October 30th, 2019, the Washington Nationals did it. After many years of failure, Game 5 implosions, a time when they might have contracted in a different country, washed away. While it was the first title in Nationals history, it wasn't the first time the nation's capital saw a World Series. The Nationals weren't the first or the second team to call DC home. Two other teams, in a different league, with a different name, came before them. Both are gone. Time to answer why both of them failed. This is the story of both Washington Senators. Also, if you thought this was a political video, you are mistaken. Play the intro. In 2005, the Montreal Expos defected from Canada to Washington, D.C. It was the first time in almost 3.5 decades that a baseball team had played in the nation's capital. So what went wrong with D.C.'s former baseball teams? The original Washington Senators started in the American League Charter in 1901. The Senators were pretty bad in the early seasons, rotating from 6th, 7th, or last in the American League. One person put it best: Washington. First in war, first in peace, and last in the American League. The Sens had 3 100-plus loss seasons, 3 90-plus loss seasons, and wouldn't get to a record over 500 until 1912, when they finished second. Washington was a pendulum, mediocre one season and awful the next. It's not like their existence was as forgetful as the St. Louis Browns. In 1924, the Senators made the World Series. It was a tight series with the Giants. In the end, Washington would edge New York in 7 games. The next year, they made it back to the World Series looking to defend their title. They wouldn't. The Senators blew a 3-1 lead to the Pittsburgh Pirates in the World Series. After that, the Senators would fall to being meh. Washington was straddling 500 like a mechanical bull. Until they made the World Series in 1933. They didn't blow a series lead this time. Kinda hard to do when you get stomped by the New York Giants in 5 games. In 1945, the Senators were very close to making the World Series, only finishing a game and a half back of the Tigers, which was impressive considering that they were in last place the year before. The Sens were just mediocre at best. Attendance had started to dip at Griffith Stadium. Many factors led to this. In 1954, the Orioles relocated from St. Louis to Baltimore and started a rivalry between the two DMV teams. Due to declining attendance and repeated frustration, the Senators decided to look at other cities. While the original Senators were planning to move somewhere, the American League, in their wisdom, decided to award an expansion team to Washington. Well, technically the expansion franchise was for Minnesota. In 1961, the American League granted 2 expansion teams to Minnesota and Los Angeles. The LA franchise became the Los Angeles/California/Anaheim/Los Angeles of Anaheim/Los Angeles Angels. But Calvin Griffith, the adopted nephew of former Sens owner Calvin Griffith, wanted to move the team. He convinced AL owners to allow him to transfer the Senators to Minnesota, giving the expansion team to Washington. And that's how the Minnesota Twins were born. Since the move, the Twins have been an interesting franchise. The Twins made the World Series in 1965, but lost to the Dodgers. The misery would finally end with 2 World Series championships in 1987 and 1991. But Minnesota has been an inconsistent and frustrating team. Not only with how they were almost contracted in 2001, but with how the Twins had the North American sports record for most consecutive playoff losses with 18. The Twins haven't won a playoff game, let alone a series, since 2002. I could go on, but that would drag on, so let's continue with the other Senators. The original Senators might have started badly, but at least they got better. I'm gonna put it bluntly. The second term of the Washington Senators was a disaster. How does starting your baseball tenure with 4 consecutive 100-loss seasons sound? It sucks? Too bad, have a 92-loss season the next year. Progress-wise, they improved to 2 80-loss seasons. The Senators needed a way out. If you want a track record for how bad they were, Try burning through 4 managers in 7 years. One season they had 3 managers in a single year. The answer? Hiring baseball legend Ted Williams, yes, that Ted Williams, as manager. It helped as the Senators rebounded in the 1969 season with an 86-76 record. Nowhere near the World Series, but it was a sigh of relief for DC. The Senators relapsed the next 2 years with 90-plus lost seasons. The Senators weren't right. Consistently bad play, bad attendance echoing their ancestor, and financial trouble were hampering the club. Senators owner Bob Short decided to explore other cities for his club to call home. Short was allowing someone to buy the team from him, all for the low cost of $12 million. No wonder nobody was going to save this sinking ship. In 1971, Short wanted one or the other: a rent-free lease in RFK Stadium or the ability to move the Senators out of the nation's capital. In September of 1971, Short got his wish. The American League approved his relocation to Arlington, Texas. The Senators were Texas-bound. On September 30th of that season, the Senators were playing their final game against the New York Yankees. While the Senators had a 7-5 lead in the top of the ninth, the fans had enough. A riot commenced. Fans stormed the field and salted the earth. They ripped apart home plate and the pitching rubber, took all the bases, tore up the grass, and pulled all the light poles from the scoreboard. This was all in the top of the ninth. The umpires had no choice but to forfeit the game to the Yankees. The final baseball game in DC for almost 35 years ended in a riot and forfeit. Unlike the Twins, the Rangers haven't won a World Series. They made the Fall Classic in back-to-back seasons but lost in heartbreaking fashion. This season, the Rangers seemed poised to return to the postseason and potentially make a run for the World Series. But this isn't the end of the story. There's another part people don't know about. Only 3 years later, Washington, D.C. nearly got its long-lost team back. In 1974, the San Diego Padres were a mess. Ownership was cheap, the team was horrible, attendance was abysmal, and there was no end in sight. The Padres, in only their 5th season, were sold to Joseph B. Dazinski, the president of a grocery company called Giant Food. He bought the Padres, intending to move them to D.C. for the 1975 season. It seemed like everything was in order. One jersey was made, trading cards were created, and even a logo and a potential team name. The team had no official name. Pandas, Nationals, and Stars were all in the mix, but none were approved. The only certain thing was Senators weren't elected for a 3rd term. This almost happened, except it didn't. When National League owners approved the sale to Dazinski for $12 million, the city of San Diego was about to sue the Padres for breaking the stadium lease. A lawsuit never happened, as many complications happened and no suits were filed. The Padres were in trouble entering spring training. They didn't have a TV or radio contract and had to ask the San Diego for money to keep a handful of their own players from becoming free agents. Until a savior appeared out of nowhere. Ray Kroc, the guy who refurbished and built McDonald's to be the fast food giant it is today, decided to buy the Padres. Kroc nearly bought his hometown Cubs and sensed an opportunity with the Padres. He saved the Padres from financial trouble and a potential relocation or contraction. While the Padres were still terrible, they at least drew more fans and found stability thanks to Kroc's charm. The Padres, while they still haven't won the World Series, have potential but keep falling short. Also, stay away from cringe-worthy rap videos, please. There is one last chapter in this story. In 2004, the Montreal Expos were a train wreck. Fans had abandoned the team, ownership changed like a deck of cards, and they couldn't get a new stadium. Well, and remember that contraction plan from 2001 that included the Twins? The Expos were the other team in that plan. The Expos explored other cities and even played half a season in Puerto Rico at one point. In 2005, it was over for Montreal. The Expos defected from Canada to the United States capital. Not as the Senators, as political issues prevented that name, but the Nationals was the name of this franchise. It's not like the fortunes would change for the Nats. Many years of futility, heartbreak, Game 5 chokes, regular season implosions, and seeing the greatest player in their history leave for one of their most hated rivals. It felt like the pain would last forever, until 2019. After a disastrous first half, the Nationals rallied and made it to the World Series on an unprecedented run. A wildcard comeback against the Brewers, revenge against the Dodgers and Cardinals for previous Game 5 eliminations, and the final quest. a 7-game upset against the Houston Astros. The Nationals avenged baseball failure in both their franchise and the city they called home. While the Nationals today are merely drifting, trying to rebuild, they at least have a title to cling on to. One thing is for certain, they have made their ancestors proud. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll see you in the next video.